I was halfway up the porch steps when I heard the laughter, mean, the kind that lifts your neck hair. Then my wife's voice cut through the night. He's too dumb to notice I've been cheating for years. The deck went silent for a beat, then they howled. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't say a word. I walked back to my truck, stared at the steering wheel, and realized my marriage had ended without a sound. If you're a man 30 to 65, you know that moment, when rage begs for the wheel. I didn't let it drive. I let silence do the steering. In the next hour, I'm going to show you how I turned that sentence into a plan. No yelling, no scenes, just dates, receipts, and a countdown to D-Day. She thought I was stupid. She mistook calm for clueless. Tonight you'll see the difference. Stay with me. The first domino falls at 10 o'clock a.m. I was supposed to be 2 states away that night. Cheap hotel, bad coffee, big game with the guys. Then Kyle called. His kid was sick, the trip was off. No big deal, I told him. I'd head home, surprise Megan with her favorite takeout and a quiet night in. That's what married men do after 30. We keep it simple. On the drive back, I thought about bills, an oil change, my dad's old watch that needs a new band. Regular life stuff. The house was dark when I pulled up. Suburban quiet. Porch light humming. I grabbed the takeout and started up the steps, already picturing Megan in sweatpants, a movie queued up, the steady comfort of a normal Friday. I didn't know that the best part of my week had already happened, right before the parking brake clicked. I reached for the front door, then heard voices rolling in from the backyard. Laughter. Big, loose, wine-heavy laughter. My name floated in. I froze on the top step and stopped breathing. You can tell a lot by how people laugh. This wasn't joy. It was mean. The kind that makes the hair rise on your arms. I went still, like a deer at the edge of the road, and eased back down the steps, past the flower pots, past the grill, to the side gate. Slats of fence framed the deck like a TV screen. I didn't look through. I just listened. Glass clink. Chairs scrape. Megan's voice, a little too loud. Someone said my name again. Then the line that cut the chords inside me. He's too dumb to notice I've been cheating for years. The deck went quiet, then burst into howls, high and hard. I felt it in my teeth. I didn't kick the gate. I didn't make a scene. I stood with my forehead against cool wood and counted 3 slow breaths like my therapist once taught me for stress at work. 1, 2, 3. The world didn't steady. It tilted. People think the big moments are loud. Weddings, births, stadiums. But the minute my life split in 2 was quiet. Just me, a fence, and the sound of my wife bragging about betrayal. My heart thumped like a boot in a dryer, then did something colder. It slowed. A small, steady drum. I pictured Sunday mornings making coffee for her. The couch where I nap after mowing the lawn. My dad's watch in the nightstand. All of it suddenly felt like props on a stage I didn't know I was standing on. I remembered my father telling me, when a fuse burns, don't grab it. Cut the power. So I stepped away from the gate. I walked back to the driveway like I'd been sent for an extension cord. Calm hands, blank face. I set the takeout on the passenger seat and sat behind the wheel. No tears. Not yet. Just a sentence in my head. It's over, and no one out here knows it but me. Rage begged for the wheel. I could see myself storming in, flipping the table, shouting every question a man asks when trust explodes. But I'm in my 30s, not 20. You learn a few things by then. Words said hot don't age well, and the first person to scream usually loses. I turned the key, pulled away from the curb, and let the house shrink in the mirror. The Target parking lot was mostly empty, just a few red carts chained together like a fence that wouldn't judge me. I parked under a buzzing light and gripped the steering wheel until the fake leather creaked. Breathing came back in short, stubborn pulls. My phone lit up with a bank email about points I didn't care about. I stared at the notification and found focus in that stupid detail. If I could read an email, I could make a plan. I texted Kyle, "You up?" He called on the first ring. I said, "Don't let me go home." I pulled into the far end of the Target lot, under a buzzing light that made the hood of my truck look tired. I put it in park and just stopped. The kind of stop where even the air feels heavy. My hands were still on the wheel. My chest forgot how to rise. A grocery cart rolled by on its own, squeaking like a bad violin. I watched it drift until it tapped the curb. That dumb little sound snapped me back. I said my name out loud, then the date, like a cop after a wreck report. Ethan, Friday, 10:27. My voice didn't sound like me. I thought about the couch where I nap on Sundays, the one they joked about. How many times had I laid there while someone else lived in my house? I swallowed hard and reached for the door handle, ready to go back. Then I saw my reflection in the window, jaw clenched, eyes hard, and I knew, if I walked in now, I'd lose everything. I've been the guy who says the wrong thing hot. I've paid for those words later. My dad taught me to keep a socket set and a cool head. Both save you money. I leaned my seat back and talked to myself like I was my own coach. You heard what you heard. You're not crazy. Do not move until you can breathe slow. I counted to 10. Twice. I read the same gas receipt on my floor mat like it held scripture. $46.12. Normal life in black ink while my marriage burned somewhere behind me. My phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Change HVAC filters. I almost laughed. Filters. Yeah. I needed one between my anger and my next decision. I opened messages. Megan's thread was right there. Every habit begged me to type. We need to talk. I could feel the trap in those 4 words. They lead to arguing, not truth. I backed out. New message. Kyle. Short, steady. You up? I hit call before my doubt could stop me. Kyle picked up on the first ring. He didn't say hello. He said, "Where are you?" I told him. He swore softly, the kind of dad uses so his kids won't hear. "Don't go back tonight," he said. "Come here. We'll figure it out in the morning." I stared through the windshield at the red Target bullseye bleeding into the night and realized I was waiting for someone older to give me permission to be smart. I could hear kids' toys clatter at his place, his wife rinsing dishes, the soundtrack of a normal evening. It made me want to cry, and I don't cry. "Bring your phone charger," he added, practical, like always. "And grab water, you're shaky." I nodded to nobody, started the truck, and let his voice be the lane markers I couldn't see. When I turned out of the lot, I had to pass my street to get to his exit. I watched my porch lights glow in the mirror and didn't blink. Kyle's living room smelled like laundry and pizza crust, honest smells. He put a glass of water in my hand and a throw blanket across my knees like I was 70. "Sit," he said. I paced. He opened his laptop and typed, "Best divorce attorney Houston," with the same calm he uses to find Little League schedules. The glow lit his face. "We gather. We don't swing," he said. We made a list like 2 guys prepping for a road trip. Bank accounts, passwords, bills, photos, texts. He told me what not to do. No confrontation, no threats, no midnight speeches. Courts don't care about hurt feelings. They care about proof. I thought about proof the way you think about spare tires. You don't appreciate them until you're in a ditch. My phone vibrated. A text from Megan. "Girls' night ran late. You okay?" The lie stung less than the ease of it. I typed nothing. I turned the phone face down and looked at Kyle. "I won't go home," I said. "Not tonight." Midnight stretched like old chewing gum. The house got quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every clock tick sound like a hammer. I lay on the couch pretending to sleep and actually cataloged my life. The Christmas she cried opening that bracelet. The Sunday we painted the kitchen and laughed at the yellow we hated. The day my dad passed and she held my hand. Each memory came with a new border now. I didn't push them away, I just labeled them. Before, after. My mind tried to draft angry speeches. I let them pass like storms on a weather app. I kept hearing Kyle's rule: sleep first, move second. Around 3, I sat up and made a promise I could keep. Tomorrow, I secure the money I earned. Tomorrow, I find a lawyer who doesn't flinch. Tomorrow, I become boring in the best way. Calm, methodical, hard to beat. I watched the first line of gray creep under the blinds and realized the night had done its job. I wasn't calm, but I was clear. Morning came like a verdict. Sun on the blinds, the quiet hum of Kyle's fridge, my phone face down on the coffee table. I sat up slow, boots on, spine straight, and told myself out loud, "Don't react, plan." It sounded simple, like a note on a fridge, but it was a line in the sand. I shaved, the way my dad did before hard days, and felt steadier with each stroke. Coffee, black. Water, full glass. I opened a pad and wrote 3 words at the top. Money, proof, exit, then bullet points under each, nothing fancy. Accounts to secure, statements to pull, names, dates, places. The feelings still hit in waves, but now they had walls to crash against. Kyle slid a granola bar my way and said, "One thing at a time." I nodded. The plan wasn't revenge, it was order. I checked the time, took a breath that reached my ribs, and stood up. Step 1, protect what I've earned. On the drive home to shower and change, my brain started laying out the red flags like tools on a bench. The girls' weekends with no photos, just captions about self-care. The phone placed face down at dinner. "So we're present," she'd say. The new lingerie I never saw again. The client dinners at places that don't book table for one. The hotel charges within 30 miles of our house. Too close for business, too far for traffic. Even the couch jokes, my sacred nap couch, suddenly felt like a neon sign I'd laughed past. I remembered her food poisoning the weekend of my dad's funeral. She stayed home. I'd told everyone not to push her. Now the memory made my stomach roll. These weren't clues back then. They were inconveniences I smoothed over because that's what grown men do to keep the train on the tracks. I gripped the wheel tighter and said to the empty cab, "Not today." The track was broken. Time to fix what I can control. Back at the house, I moved like a guest in a museum. Quiet, careful, no fingerprints on anything I didn't need to touch. I took a photo of the safe, the jewelry box, the home office desk. I wasn't snooping. I was inventorying my life. Then I showered, put on a clean shirt, and stood in front of the mirror. "You're not a victim," I said. "You're a witness. Act like one." The words didn't erase the pain, but they gave it a uniform. I opened my laptop, logged into our bank, and watched the numbers like a hawk. Transfers, auto pays, joint accounts. I listed everything that bore my name and everything that didn't. The urge to text her flared again. Why? How long? Who else? But I could see the future of that thread. 4 bubbles, no truth. I closed the messages window and opened a spreadsheet instead. Columns labeled date, vendor, amount, note. It felt boring. It also felt like power. Boredom is where people stop losing. After lunch, I met with Linda, divorce attorney, no nonsense, handshake like a foreman. She listened without interrupting, then said, "Don't confront, document, secure your finances, sleep, repeat." She outlined steps like a pre-flight checklist. Close extra cards, open a solo account, change passwords, photograph valuables, keep a log. Her tone was calm, and it started to bleed into me. I told her the line Megan had laughed, "He's too dumb to notice." Linda smiled without humor. She confused quiet with stupid. Quiet is just quiet. On the drive back, the words kept bouncing around the cab. She thought I was stupid. Maybe that's my advantage. Men my age know something 20-year-olds don't. Patience is a tool. I don't have to swing first to win. I have to stand longer. I parked outside my place and looked at the front door. It was still our home, for now. I stepped in with a straight back and a straight plan. Advantage, mine, if I kept it. Late afternoon light fell across the living room, the kind that makes dust look like snow. I sat where I always sit, heard the old house settle, and felt something new. Not peace, exactly. Precision. I gathered the essentials into a go bag. My dad's watch, birth certificate, passport, the thumb drive from the safe. Took photos of electronics, serial numbers, the Ring camera base. Every click sounded like a small lock sliding into place. I copied my evidence to a cloud folder labeled with a boring file name, Taxes 2022, and emailed myself a list of next steps. When Megan texted, "Dinner plans?" I stared at the bubble. I typed "sure," then deleted it. I typed, "We need to talk," deleted that too. I sent a thumbs up and nothing more. The calm felt sharp enough to shave with. If she wanted a mistake, she wouldn't get mine. I set my phone down screen side up and watched it do nothing. That nothing was the strongest move I made all day. That evening, I moved through the house like a man checking windows before a storm. When Megan stepped into the shower, I set a timer on my phone, 5 minutes, my guardrails, and opened hers. No hacking, just the passcode I'd watched 100 times at restaurants. Messages first. I didn't scroll fast. I searched dates, hotel names, a heart emoji next to Brad. Threads unfolded like receipts unspooling from a register. Photos cropped close. Client dinner ran long, sitting right beside a selfie from a room with the same curtains as the chain hotel near our exit. The timer buzzed. I locked the screen, placed it exactly where I found it, and walked to the sink. I washed my hands like I'd been handling something toxic. In the mirror, I didn't look wrecked. I looked awake. Older men talk about gut checks. This was mine, not a guess, not a hunch. Evidence. I picked up a yellow legal pad and wrote one word at the top. Proof. The next night, I turned the kitchen table into a workbench. Laptop open. Legal pad ready. Old school meets cloud. I started a spreadsheet the way I'd balance a checkbook for my dad. Date, time, place, amount, note. I pulled bank statements, highlighted charges that didn't fit the rhythm of our life. Tuesday night steakhouse, Saturday boutique hotel within a 30-minute drive, double charges at wine bars I'd never heard of. Every grown man knows his household pattern like a farmer knows weather. This wasn't ours. I cross-checked against texts, matched timestamps with client showings, and selfies that didn't show clients. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, labeled each file like I was cataloging tools. No flash, no drama, just the methodical click of a man sorting bolts by size. When the house settled and the ice maker clunked, it sounded like a stamp. I emailed myself a copy of the sheet and named the folder plain as oatmeal. Insurance. I didn't need clever, I needed complete. I drove past 2 hotels on my lunch break, the kind with beige curtains and tired carpets. I wasn't tailing anyone. I was confirming patterns. I took quick exterior shots, logged addresses, and noted checkout times listed online. Back home, I opened our shared cloud and found Vacation 2022. Inside were random uploads, accidental backups most people never see. A mirror selfie of Megan in a dress I never saw in our closet. A room number accidentally caught in the frame. Little tells older guys know from fixing things around the house. The tiny details that prove where you've been. I matched the room art to the hotel's website gallery and took a breath that tasted like metal. Then I checked our carrier's phone bill, call lengths, data spikes. Not spying, accounting. When a late charge popped up on a card we rarely used, I added it to the ledger and kept moving. Every entry drew a straighter line. I wasn't building a story, I was building a record. Proof means nothing if it disappears, so I treated it like a will. I bought a cheap thumb drive, copied the folder, and put it in my gun safe beside my dad's watch. I created a second copy on a cloud account Megan didn't know about. Then I made a quiet evidence packet PDF, screenshots arranged in timeline order, transactions stacked under their dates, photos labeled with locations. I printed one clean copy and sealed it in a manila envelope labeled insurance in my neatest block letters. Old habit. When the stakes are high, write like an adult. I set email rules to forward anything from those hotels or restaurants straight to my private account. Each step felt a little less like bleeding and a little more like stitching. Before bed, I walked the house once, not to check doors, but to check myself. No speeches, no hints, no shoulder coldness that would tip her off. Boundaries, not battles. Sleep came short, but it came. On the third night, I lined everything up like a carpenter measuring twice. Ledger, tight. Screenshots, time-stamped. Bank pulls, organized. Phone bill, annotated. I added a short summary page in plain English, the way I'd explain a project to a new foreman. Here's what happened, when it happened, and what was spent. I didn't pad it with my feelings. Men my age know feelings matter, but they don't win courtrooms or conversations with people who only respect facts. I created a contact card for an attorney I hadn't met yet, and attached the insurance file to a draft email addressed to myself, my lawyer-to-be, and, when the time came, Brad's wife. Draft saved, not sent. That restraint felt heavier than any confrontation I could have staged. I closed the laptop and listened to the house breathe. Somewhere down the hall, Megan laughed at a show on her phone. The sound didn't knife me this time. It measured me. It wasn't anger anymore. It was precision. By morning, I had a folder named Insurance and a stomach full of gravel. I booked the earliest consult I could find, Linda Parker, downtown. Her office felt like a bank lobby, neat, quiet, plants that never wilt. She shook my hand like she meant it and let me talk without jumping in. When I finished, she slid a legal pad over and said, "You've already done the hard part, staying calm." Then she gave me 3 lines I could carry in my pocket. Don't confront, document, protect your assets. No fire, just policy. She asked about accounts, property, retirement, debts, titles. The boring grown-up list every husband knows he should keep and most of us don't. I handed her my packet, and for the first time in days, I watched someone read without flinching. She nodded at the timestamps, the ledger, the printouts. "We're not here to punish," she said. "We're here to position." That word landed. I walked out with a checklist, a plan, and a steadier pulse. Linda's first box to check was simple, not easy. Secure what you've earned. I sat in my truck and called the bank like I was fixing a leaky faucet. Calm, step by step. I opened a solo account, changed my online passwords, and set alerts for every transaction over $20. Then I froze the joint credit cards with a straight, honest line. "There's suspicious activity. Please issue replacements." I didn't accuse, I didn't explain, I just bought time. I moved my direct deposit to the new account and set up autopay for my car, insurance, and phone so nothing important bounced. At lunch, I visited a branch to confirm my ID and asked for a basic printout of balances. Nothing fancy. Paper you can hold quiets the mind. Back home, I scanned it all into the insurance folder and wrote the date across the top of my notes like a carpenter marking a stud. Money first, then everything else. That order felt like oxygen. The next task was dull in the way that saves you later. List what exists. I walked the house with my phone like a home inspector. Photos of furniture, electronics, serial numbers, jewelry, tools, the mower, even the grill. Titles and registrations went in a flat stack. Truck, mortgage, warranty papers, passports. I snapped the engagement ring and wedding bands where they lived, left them there, and logged their appraisals. I filmed a slow pan of each room, narrating the date and time like a news anchor. Kitchen, Tuesday, 4:12 p.m. It felt ridiculous until I remembered Linda's line. Courts don't read feelings, they read records. I added intangible assets to the list, 401k, HSA, life insurance beneficiaries, then wrote down debts I'd rather ignore. The couch on 0 interest, the last dental bill, the lingering card balance from a vacation I guess we didn't really share. I wasn't hunting trophies. I was building a map. Maps don't care about blame. They care about where things are. I kept living like a man filming a how-to video no one would ever see. I booked a small storage unit and moved irreplaceables. My dad's watch, family photos, the box of letters from college. Not everything, just the things I'd hate to negotiate. I added a low-cost renter's policy to cover the unit and screenshotted the declaration page to my folder. I bought a cheap duplicate phone charger and left my good one at Kyle's as a failsafe. I set up a new email with a boring name and forwarded insurance there too. Passwords went into a notebook only I could read. No clever names, just block letters. I even set a daily timer for 20 minutes, admin only. When it chimed, I stopped, no matter how amped I felt. That boundary kept me from making mistakes born of adrenaline. At dinner, Megan talked about a client open house. I nodded, asked polite questions, and passed the salt. My face did what it needed to. My plan did the rest. By the end of the week, my life had a new soundtrack, papers sliding into folders, the click of a safe, the quiet ping of email rules doing their job. I met Linda again and went down her checklist like a pre-flight. Accounts, secure, evidence, time-stamped, assets, listed, essentials, moved, demeanor, calm. She added one more. Pick a date. You need a point on the calendar where the truth stands up, she said. We chose one that mattered to Megan, not to punish, but to make sure someone would answer their phone when the dominoes fell. I walked out into Houston heat and felt it differently. Less like a fog, more like a forge. On the way home, I bought fresh printer ink, a pack of manila envelopes, and a roll of clear tape. War stores for a war I didn't start and didn't want, but would finish. That night I looked around our living room and understood what I'd built. It wasn't marriage anymore. It was war. By the rules. The next 2 weeks felt like community theater in my own house. I played husband, hit my marks, and spoke my lines. Morning coffee? How was the showing? I made eggs on Saturday and mowed the lawn in straight stripes because a tidy yard steadies a man. We watched the same Netflix show in the evenings. She laughed at the parts we always laugh at. I smiled right on cue. Older guys will get this. Marriage has a rhythm, like a favorite radio station. I kept the station on while I changed the wiring behind the wall. Every good morning tasted like cardboard, but I let it pass. When she reached for my hand on the couch, I squeezed back with the strength I had. She talked about paint colors for the guest room, and I nodded like a man comparing swatches. Inside, I measured minutes, not moods. I slept light, phone on the nightstand, notes on the dresser. From the outside, perfect. From the inside, a stage set. On Tuesday, I made her avocado toast the way she likes. Lemon, salt, a soft egg. I plated it nice, like a diner cook who still has pride. She looked surprised in a good way, and for a second my hands wanted to forget what they knew. But memory is a sober friend. I poured her coffee and asked about her day while I mentally checked my list. Cloud backups, safe copy, attorney appointment confirmed. She told a funny story about a client who wanted a modern farmhouse in a neighborhood that only builds brick. We both laughed because adults learn to laugh at small absurdities. That's how we get through. When she kissed my cheek and said, "You're sweet," I felt a clean cut where those words used to land. The smile I gave back belonged to the man I am now, gentle on the surface, granite underneath. I rinsed the dishes and loaded the dishwasher in neat rows. Order calms me. That morning, the calm felt earned. That night, we queued up a show we've rewatched enough to recite. People our age love rewatching. Low stakes, no surprises. I let the familiar dialogue do the heavy lifting while my attention ran a quiet audit. Her phone lit, she tilted it away, thumb flicking fast. I didn't look. I noted. I laughed at the right beats, passed the blanket, and adjusted the thermostat up a notch when she wasn't looking. Our forever tug of war. In the space between episodes, she said we should plan a summer trip. I said maybe late July and smiled. Truth is, I already had a different date circled in red. When the credits rolled, she rested her head on my shoulder and sighed the sigh of a woman who believes her world is intact. I felt like a man holding a glass ornament and a hammer at the same time. I didn't swing. I set the ornament down and stood up. "I'm turning in," I said. In the dark, I updated my checklist. By Thursday, her kindness grew 2 sizes. She made my favorite chili, set out my gym bag, and texted me a photo of a house with a big porch. "Imagine coffee here. Guilt has manners when it thinks you're not looking." I answered with the warmth I could afford. On my lunch break, I stopped by the storage unit, checked the lock, and added a small fireproof pouch with copies of birth certificates and a thumb drive. Back home, I folded laundry with the care of a man who prefers crisp corners, towels stacked, shirts aligned. The normalcy would have fooled me a month ago, not now. A neighbor waved from the sidewalk. We traded the same, "How you doing?" men have used for decades. "Can't complain," I said, and meant it in a strange way. Complaining is for people without a plan. That night, Megan fell asleep early. I sat at the dining table, polished my dad's watch with an old t-shirt, and set it ticking. So was everything else. Sunday came with church traffic and lawnmower hums up and down the block. I grilled burgers, oversalted mine on purpose, so I'd drink more water and keep my head clear. Megan talked about a client event she'd been planning for weeks, how the guest list doubled, how the venue comped extra chairs. She glowed with it. I asked gentle questions, the kind that make people open their calendars. When she confirmed the start time and the address, I nodded and kissed her forehead. Later, I took out the trash and stood by the cans longer than needed, breathing the ordinary air of our cul-de-sac. Dogs, sprinklers, a radio 2 houses over. Back inside, I set my alarm for an hour earlier than usual and charged my phone to a full 100. Then I placed the manila envelope, insurance, in my work bag and zipped it shut. The house was still. The plan was not. She scrolled her phone in bed, smiling at nothing. She had no idea. D-Day was coming. Kyle named it on the phone, like dads do when they label projects in the garage. Operation Clean Cut, he said, and it stuck. We met at his kitchen table. 2 mugs, 2 pens, 1 quiet plan. I laid out the insurance packet. He laid out a cheap stapler and a fresh pad like we were building a Little League schedule. We made columns. Who needs to know, what they need to see, when they need to see it. No speeches, no threats. Facts only. He kept me honest. Short, clear, verifiable. I read each item out loud, screenshots, bank pulls, phone logs, hotel photos, and he asked the same question every time. Would this convince a stranger? If the answer wasn't yes, we tightened it. When we were done, he slid the stack back to me and nodded like a foreman signing off on framing. Remember, he said, clean cuts heal faster. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat like a sleeping child and the radio off. The next night, I turned my dining table into a copy shop. Printer humming, highlighter uncapped, manila envelopes fanned out like place settings. I arranged everything in timeline order. First lie, first charge, first photo. I kept the captions plain. June 14th, restaurant charge at 7:18 p.m., 7:23 p.m. selfie from hotel lobby. No color, no adjectives. Old school courtroom advice, let the dates talk. I added a cover sheet that read, summary of events, then a 1-page index for anyone skimming under stress. I even printed a spare set and trimmed the edges so the stack wouldn't snag. Small things calm the mind. While pages cooled, I taped a post-it to my laptop that said, don't send when angry. Men my age know late-night emails can burn more than they fix. I slipped the finished packet into an envelope labeled Insurance A and pressed the clasp flat. The house was quiet. The dossier made a soft, confident weight in my hands I hadn't felt in weeks. I didn't want a scene. I wanted accountability. That meant one more person had to see the truth. Laura, Brad's wife. I took the careful route, public records, a business website, the PTA newsletter that still had last spring's phone tree. No dark arts, just breadcrumbs anyone could follow. I double-checked the address through a White Pages lookup and confirmed her workplace hours from a school calendar. Again, public. Then I built a version of the packet with her in mind. Fewer bank terms, more plain English. I wrote a short note, respectful, direct. I'm sorry to bring this to your door. You deserve precise information. I sealed Insurance L and set it beside Insurance A like 2 neatly folded shirts. Before bed, I told Kyle what I'd done. He said, good, be kind, be clear, be done. I slept light but without nightmares, the way a man sleeps before an early flight. The alarm would come and I'd have places to be and facts to deliver. If you're going to pull a ripcord, you need a landing spot. I toured a modest apartment on the quiet side of town. Clean hallways, friendly manager, no nonsense. The kind of place where people nod in the elevator and mind their business. I signed the lease with a hand that didn't shake. Utilities scheduled. Wi-Fi appointment booked. I moved the irreplaceables first. My dad's watch, family photos, that dented toolbox from college. I bought a cheap coffee maker and a fresh set of sheets. Symbolic, maybe, but every new start benefits from crisp cotton and hot coffee. I set my toothbrush in the bathroom like a flag on a small hill. Back at the house, I replaced what I'd moved with lookalikes or nothing at all, careful not to tip the balance. Megan mentioned loving the breeze that night. I nodded and locked my jaw. A man who's leaving still takes the trash out. Courtesy costs nothing and hides everything. On Sunday evening, I laid everything out like a mechanic before an engine job. Insurance A for the attorney, Insurance L for Laura, for a sealed copy for the safe, apartment keys in my pocket, calendar alerts set for tomorrow's deliveries, phone fully charged, do not disturb scheduled with exceptions for Kyle and Linda. I rehearsed the morning like a pregame, coffee, shower, tie, smile to Megan, kiss on the cheek, keep the routine. Then at 10 o'clock a.m., courier out the door. At noon, confirmation received. At 3, parental email, simple timeline, attached proof. At 6, papers on the table. I pictured every step and felt the tightness ease the way it does when a plan finally fits. Music low, lights off. I stood at the back door and watched the yard breathe. Sprinklers ticking, a dog 2 fences down, sky the color of steel. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was ready. I turned off the porch light and went to bed. Everything was ready. Just one push. D-Day started like any other Tuesday. I ground the beans, set the mug under the drip, and watched dark coffee rise like a tide. Megan came down in a fitted dress the color of new money, hair smooth, perfume light. I handed her a mug and a kiss on the cheek, same spot as always. "Big day?" I asked. She smiled that bright public smile. "Huge." We traded the usual small talk, traffic, weather, a joke about Houston humidity flattening curls. Normal is the best disguise. When she left, heels tapping down the walk, I stood in the doorway and let the screen door whisper shut. The house held that thin quiet you only get in the morning. I rinsed my cup, wiped the counter, and put on a tie I've owned since a friend's wedding. Then I opened my bag, checked the manila envelopes, insurance A, insurance L, and set my phone to full brightness. Simple steps, done in order. Calm hands, clear head. The clock read 9:42. At 9:58, I parked in a lot near her event venue and watched the doors. People in suits flowed in carrying clipboards and lanyards. At 10 a.m. sharp, I sent Insurance L to Laura via courier. Signature required. The tracking number popped up like a green light. I texted Kyle a single word. Sent. Then I drove to a quiet side street and waited with the windows cracked. The sun made the dashboard warm. I thought of all the times older men told me timing is everything. Sprinklers, grilling, engines, and now this. At 10:36, the courier app pinged. Delivered. Signed. I set the phone face down and let out air I didn't know I'd held. No music, no fist pump, just the clean sense of a first domino falling where it should. I pictured Laura at her kitchen table, opening the packet, finding the index, moving through dates and receipts that didn't yell, only pointed. Truth doesn't need a megaphone. It needs a timestamp. At 11:57, my phone vibrated like a hive waking. By 12:03, it was steady. Text after text, Megan's name stacking on the lock screen. "Hey, can you call me?" turned into "please pick up," then "what did you do?" I didn't answer. I watched each message arrive like rain on a windshield. Notice it, don't chase it. At 12:20, an unknown number called. Laura. Her voice shook but held. We spoke simply, two adults with the same wound comparing notes. She thanked me for the index page. "It helped me breathe," she said. I told her I was sorry she needed it. We agreed on one rule: no public scenes, no online fireworks, facts only. After the call, I sat with a bottle of water and ate a protein bar I didn't taste. Across town, Megan's big day was turning sideways. I didn't feel victory. I felt alignment. At 12:59, my calendar chimed. Step 2 complete. Step 3 at 3 o'clock. At 2:55, I drafted the email to her parents. No heat, no insult, just a timeline and attachments. "You deserve clarity," I wrote, and I meant it. At 3 o'clock p.m., I hit send. I imagined their faces softening and hardening at the same time the way older parents do when the truth lands. A minute later, I forwarded the same packet to my attorney with the subject, "as discussed." Then I drove to my new apartment and placed a spare copy of Insurance A in the safe. Small rituals matter on days like this. They give you rails to hold. On the way back, I turned off the radio and let the hum of the road be enough. The house greeted me like it always does. Cool entryway, faint laundry smell, a stack of mail on the console. I straightened it out of habit, set my keys in the bowl, and checked the time. 5:41. I poured a glass of water and sat, quiet as a church. At 6:02, the front door opened fast. Megan stood there with mascara smudged, phone in her fist, breath short. "We need to talk," she said, voice pitched high. I didn't stand. I didn't accuse. I gestured to the coffee table where I'd laid the divorce papers like a neat place setting, pen to the right, envelope beneath. Her eyes fell to the name blocks, then to the date. Color drained like a tide going out. The house seemed to step back and give us room. She started fast. Anger, denial, revisions, the whole parade. I kept my hands open on my knees and spoke in sentences a judge could read. "I know. I have documentation. We'll do this properly." When she reached for my phone, I slid it into my pocket and shook my head once. No raised voice, no speech, just 2 seats, one table, and the reality between us. The clock hummed. My heartbeat didn't. No yelling, no drama, just truth. The first wave hit hard. Megan cycled through every gear: anger, shock, bargaining, like a driver grinding a bad transmission. You can't do this. Then, we can fix this. Then, it was just a mistake. I kept my feet flat, hands open on my knees, and answered in sentences that could live on paper. I can. We won't. It wasn't. She cried loud, the kind of crying that used to pull me in like a riptide. This time I let it pass. Grown men know you can drown trying to save someone who's fighting the water. I offered a glass of water, a chair, and quiet. When she asked who else knew, I told her plainly, people who deserve the truth. Her phone lit up, missed calls, messages, a social life blinking SOS. I didn't touch it. I watched the house hold us both like a referee at the edge of a ring. When words ran out, there was a strange stillness between us. Silence became my power. By morning, the social weather changed. Friends who loved her highlight reel went dark. Group chats fell silent. Invitations thinned to air. Reputation is a house built from other people's bricks. Once they stop handing you any, the walls show daylight. Megan paced the kitchen reading texts and not reading them. They're being dramatic, she said, then softer. Why won't Michelle answer? I made coffee and set a mug down within reach. Because truths land in different rooms at different times, I said. She gave me a look that used to make me apologize. I didn't apologize. I took a shower, got dressed for work, and left on time because routine is an anchor. On my drive, Kyle called and said, "Hold your line." That's what older men tell each other when storms hit. At lunch, I checked in with Linda. Everything was in motion exactly as planned. That evening, Megan tried on stories like coats, remorse, blame, nostalgia. None fit. The mirror finally told her the one story that mattered. Laura filed at the courthouse before noon. She called me afterward, not to coordinate, not to collude, simply to say it was done. Her voice had that steady tremble of someone who chose herself after a long time of choosing second. "Thank you for the index," she said again. It kept me moving. I told her I hoped she slept well for the first time in weeks. After the call, I stood in my apartment and realized how quiet, honest space feels. No performance, no checking a tone. I made a small dinner I actually tasted, chicken, rice, a little salt, and ate it at my own table like a man who'd survived a storm shelter. On social media, the story started walking without me. I didn't feed it. People who needed to know already knew. In the old days, I might have looked for vindication in strangers' opinions. Now I looked for it in receipts, signatures, and doors that close gently. It's amazing how far calm travels on its own. The next few days were a study in restraint. At work, I kept my head down and met my deadlines. At home, I answered only what required an answer: logistics, timelines, keys. When Megan swung back to fury, accusing, revising, rewinding, I set a boundary the way you set a level on a board: straight, visible, not personal. I will not argue. We'll communicate through counsel. She called that cold. Maybe it is. Cold keeps food safe and builds bridges that hold. Our mutual friends tried to triangulate. I spared them the map. "I'm okay," I said, and meant it enough to stop questions. At night, I drove by my old gym, sat in the truck, and let life look normal for a minute. I thought about my dad teaching me to cut away a strip of drywall to find the leak instead of repainting the stain. Fix the thing, not the look. This was that, just with vows and paperwork. I kept watching. I didn't join. When the first court date arrived, the air in the hallway felt like a doctor's office on Monday, stiff with waiting. Linda reviewed the packet with me one more time, tapping timestamps like mile markers. Inside, the rhythm was simple. Facts displayed, questions answered, no extra words. Megan tried a story that wilted under dates. I didn't gloat. I breathed. The judge's face didn't move much. That's how you know they're working. When we stepped out, paperwork in hand, the sky had that high blue you only notice after you've been underground. Kyle texted a thumbs up and nothing else, the perfect amount. I drove to my apartment, set the file in the safe, and stood at the window until the glass cooled my forehead. Across the lot, a dad taught his kid to ride a bike without training wheels. He jogged, let go, jogged again. I knew that feeling. Release without fear. Justice didn't need rage. It needed patience. The first night in my apartment, I stood in the doorway a full minute before turning on the light. No staged photos, no scented candles, no history. Just a couch, a coffee table, and a box labeled Kitchen, Open First. I brewed a cup in a cheap machine that hissed like a radiator and watched steam curl into an empty room. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was honest. I hung 3 shirts in the closet with too much space between them, set my dad's watch on the dresser, and slid the insurance file into the safe like a book on a high shelf. When I showered, the bathroom mirror fogged edge to edge, and I drew a fingertip line through the middle, the way I did as a kid. I slept on new sheets that crackled a little and woke once at 3 a.m., expecting texts that didn't come. Morning brought sun I didn't have to share, and a to-do list that started simple. Trash bags, dish soap, a welcome mat with no message. I found a therapist through my insurance and sat on a gray chair that had seen 1,000 men like me. He asked for the headline, and I gave him dates instead of fireworks. "Good," he said. "Dates get you out of loops." We talked about trust like it was a muscle group I'd ignored, small stabilizers you only notice when they're sore. He didn't ask me to forgive. He asked me to notice. Where does it live in your body? Jaw, hands, chest? We practiced breathing that isn't dramatic, just useful. 4 in, 6 out, the way you'd cool an engine. I told him about the couch jokes, the target lot, the plan. He said, "You stayed in control without going numb. That's rare." On the way home, I bought a real pan and a decent knife. Therapy didn't fix anything in an hour, but it pointed me away from the wreck. At a red light, I caught myself not rehearsing speeches. That counted as progress I could measure. Kyle showed up Saturday with bagels and a duffel. "Jim?" he asked, like we were 25 again. The place smelled like rubber and old ambition. I started light, rower, stretch, a few slow laps that made my lungs remember grade school field day. We didn't talk about divorce between sets. We talked about oil changes, Little League, and the Astros bullpen. Older men know that ordinary conversation is a life raft. Afterward, he dragged me to a hardware store where everything is in cardboard bins and the clerk knows the difference between drywall anchors by sight. We bought a level, a stud finder, a tape measure, tools that make lines straight. Back at my place, we hung a shelf like it mattered because it did. When he left, the apartment looked 1 notch more like a home and less like a pause. I texted him a photo of the shelf holding my dad's watch in a small frame. He replied with a thumbs up and, "Keep stacking wins." I started keeping a plain index card on the fridge. Cook, move, clean, call. 4 verbs, 1 per line. Cook meant real food. Eggs in the morning, chicken and rice at night, vegetables even when they taste like homework. Move meant 30 minutes. Walk, jog, or bounce a basketball at the park until breath replaced thoughts. Clean meant dishes done after dinner, trash out, counters clear, order you can see. Call meant 1 human voice. Kyle, my sister, the guy from work who always knows when the good coffee's brewed. I set a nightly alarm for lights out and plugged my phone across the room so midnight scrolling couldn't drag me. On Sundays, I ironed 2 shirts like my dad taught me, spray bottle, smooth strokes, and felt a private pride that nobody needed to applaud. Grief still showed up uninvited, but it found fewer empty chairs. The apartment started to smell like coffee and laundry instead of cardboard and change. My life answered, 1 small chore at a time. Progress didn't arrive with fireworks. It came on a Tuesday when I woke before the alarm and realized my jaw wasn't clenched. The window held a slice of early light, and the room felt wider, as if someone had moved a wall an inch. I made coffee and didn't check my phone first. The cup was hot in a way that felt like company. On the drive to work, a song from college came on, and instead of flinching at the memory, I rolled the window down and let the air clean it. At lunch, I cooked in my own pan and didn't eat out of habit. That night, I walked a lap around the complex and nodded at a neighbor walking his dog. "Evening," I said, and meant it to both of us. Back home, I crossed off the index card verbs in one slow line and set it back on the fridge. I turned off the lamp, lay down, and smiled once in the dark. Every morning felt a little less heavy. Laura and I met at a quiet coffee place with slow ceiling fans and a chalkboard menu that hasn't changed in a decade. We didn't hug, we didn't whisper, we sat across from each other like two people reading the same manual in different years. She wore no ring and no performance. I brought no speeches. We compared timelines, filled small gaps, and let silence do some of the work. When she said, "I'm sleeping again," I felt something unclench in my chest. We didn't trade pain like baseball cards. We traded routines, how she walks after dinner, how I keep an index card on my fridge. She laughed when I said vegetables taste like homework. I laughed when she admitted she sets 2 alarms because mornings are tricky now. Before we left, she said, "No pressure, no promises." I nodded. Coffee, not chemistry. In the parking lot we waved, nothing more. On the drive home, I realized the craving for revenge had been replaced by a quieter appetite. Peace. I started treating weeknights like night school. I'd come home, cook simple, and give myself 1 hour to learn instead of scroll. Budgeting, sleep hygiene, a podcast about trust that sounded less like therapy and more like coaching. The host said trust isn't a feeling, it's a pattern you can measure. I wrote that on a sticky note and put it on the bathroom mirror. It helped when my brain tried to turn old scenes into new worries. Laura and I texted sometimes, pictures of bad cereal aisle sales, the kind of nothing that says, "I'm here without asking for anything." Kyle dragged me to a minor league game, where dads explained infield fly rules to kids who only wanted ice cream. Normal life has a pitch count. You learn to love routine. One night I opened a box I'd avoided, photos from our wedding. I didn't burn them. I put them in a labeled folder and set it in the closet. Let the past be archived, not erased. I said yes to a hike with a woman from a Saturday group, the kind where people bring dogs and granola more than pickup lines. We kept the pace easy. She asked what I do, I told her. She asked what I'd been through. I said I was divorced, full stop. Older adults know that clarity is kindness. We talked about good coffee and bad knees, and how we both keep ibuprofen in the glove box like a fire extinguisher. When she asked if I wanted to grab tacos after, I checked myself for panic. None. We ate on a patio where the string lights didn't try too hard. I paid. She tipped. Nobody reached for a phone mid-sentence. At the end, we agreed on maybe again, and I drove home without rehearsing texts. In the shower, I felt the water hit the back of my neck and thought, I didn't audition tonight. I just showed up. That felt like passing a test I didn't assign myself. Trust didn't return as a flood. It showed up like lumber, one board at a time. I trusted the stove, cook, clean, repeat. I trusted my feet, walk after dinner, sleep better. I trusted my calendar, therapy Tuesdays, gym Saturdays, call my sister on Sundays. With people, I practiced the smallest version, show up when I say, leave when I say what I mean. Laura and I grabbed lunch once, no postmortems, just turkey sandwiches and the weather. She mentioned she'd found a new place near her sister, and I felt relief instead of loss. Different roads, same direction, forward. At work, I asked for a new project and got one that required focus more than flash. The satisfaction was honest. No audience, no likes, just a clean deliverable. That night, I moved the index card on my fridge and added a 5th verb, build. I hung a second shelf in the hallway and set 2 paperback novels on it. It looked simple. It looked strong. Months stacked without me counting them. I didn't track firsts anymore. I tracked still cooking, still sleeping, still not looking for fire where there should be light. Laura texted a photo of her new front door, a cheerful blue, and I sent back my shelf, now holding a plant I haven't killed. We congratulated each other like neighbors across a fence. One Friday, the hike woman invited me to a trivia night. I went, didn't win, didn't care. On the drive home, I didn't feel hollow. I felt proportionate. I thought about how my dad fixed things. Clean the area, use the right tool, don't over-tighten, or you'll strip the threads. I'd been doing that with my life, one careful turn at a time. Back in my apartment, I turned off the lamp and stood in the small dark, listening to the hum of a place that's mine. The scoreboard I used to check, revenge, was gone. In its spot, a blueprint. Rebuilding is harder than revenge, but it lasts longer. I went to Home Depot for paint and a level. Nothing dramatic, just Saturday errands that tell you life goes on. The store smelled like lumber and coffee, the kind of scent older men find steadying. I turned down aisle 14 and nearly bumped carts with Megan. We both stopped like deer in the same headlights. Her hair was shorter, mine had more gray. For a second my body braced for the old wave. Heat, spin, sting, but it didn't come. We parked our carts to the side like two neighbors being polite. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I answered. The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was careful. She looked at the paint chips in my hand and forced a small smile. "Good color," she said. "It hides mistakes." I almost laughed. Gentle, not mean. "That's the point," I said. We stood there, two people who knew the last chapter but hadn't read the epilogue. I felt the tug to leave, and also the need to finish something small and human. We sat on a bench by the garden center, both holding orange bags like shields. No speeches, no raised voices. She started with the only clean door left. "I'm sorry," she said, and didn't add but. Her eyes didn't hunt for escape hatches. She said she'd started therapy, that she was learning why she kept burning bridges and calling the smoke stress. She talked about moving, Chicago, a friend's couch for a while, interviews lined up. I listened the way I wish I'd learned sooner. Less fixing, more hearing. I told her I hoped she found what she needed, not as a line, but because wishing someone well costs nothing and returns your own peace with interest. She asked if I was okay. I said, "Better than I expected." It wasn't a performance. It was a measurement. We traded two practical details, mail, keys, and agreed to keep the lawyers in front. When we stood, I realized my hands weren't trembling. That felt like a quiet victory only I could see. At the curb, we paused like people deciding the right way to end a conversation neither of us rehearsed. She said, "It doesn't matter now, but I did love you. I just didn't know how to love anyone right then." A year ago, that sentence would have torn something open. Today it placed a small stone on a finished grave. I nodded. "Thank you for saying it." No anger, no applause, just punctuation. We didn't hug. We didn't swap updates like anchors. She walked toward her car with a steady step, and I turned toward the paint desk to get the color mixed. The clerk shook the can until it hummed, and I watched the machine do its simple job, blend what doesn't match into something usable. Back home, I edged the first wall with slow strokes. The room looked brighter in a way that wasn't trying too hard. Whatever story we were, it had closed. It felt like watching a movie I'd already seen. Life didn't flip a switch. It settled. Work got busy in the right way. Clear projects, clean handoffs, the satisfaction of checking boxes without checking my phone. My apartment looks like someone actually lives there now. A real rug, 2 shelves I hung level on the first try, a plant that refuses to die. I cook most nights and leave the sink empty before bed. I started seeing someone. Easy pace, good humor, no auditions. She knows the outline, not the ugly footnotes, and that's enough for now. Some evenings I still hear a song that belongs to the old house. It stings, then passes, like stepping off a curb you didn't see. I don't run from it. I just keep walking. Last weekend I opened the safe, plugged in the thumb drive, and scrolled the insurance folder one final time. Dates, receipts, screenshots, proof that kept me steady when I needed rails. I deleted every file, not out of mercy, but out of closure. The room felt lighter, and so did I. Sun comes through the blinds like a gentle verdict. I pour coffee, lean on the counter, and look back without flinching. I remember the porch laughter, the Target lot, the yellow legal pad, the quiet signatures. Pain had its hour. Patience had the rest. Somewhere along the way, rage stopped asking for the wheel, and I let calm drive me home. I didn't win by shouting. I won by showing up, day after day, choice after choice, until my life answered back. She learned that actions have consequences. I learned that strength isn't loud. The best revenge isn't destroying someone else's life. It's rebuilding your own. Out the window, Houston wakes, sprinklers tick, a dog barks twice, light climbs a brick wall. I take a slow sip and feel the cup warm my hands. This isn't a victory lap. It's a beginning that doesn't need applause. If you were me, what would you do? Confront in the moment, or rebuild with receipts and time? Comment, confront, or rebuild, and tell me why. Your story might steady someone else's.